Hello and welcome to day one of week one of Split 2 playoffs of the 2020 OPL. I think I got all those numbers right. I'm your host, Nick Boy Richardson, and I am very excited to be here thanks to our partners, Macca's, Epos, and NeoSurf. We are here for the playoffs. It is happening. We've got potentially a stack of games coming at you tonight, and I couldn't do it without my three best friends. But tonight, it's four best friends because we got Juves as well. Please welcome Juves, Skimmy, Rusty, and Spawn. Gentlemen, how are we feeling? Juves, you can start because you're the guest.
Well, that was a quick way for me to just Alt F4 stream. I actually closed down the Twitch channel, and I was about to close down the actual call that we're on. So I'm glad you included me in your best friend group. It's good to be here, and I'm excited for the games.
We are very excited to have you here. It's a tradition now. Whenever we get to the point in the season where it actually means something, and it's not just the trash that we have to go through to get to playoffs and finals, then we bring along an important
come on,
guest.
mate.
So
call it what it is. As soon as the producers are actually willing to get out the checkbook to spend enough money to get one of the best in the business back on the show, he shows up. Like, well, it's purely a fiscal responsibility for Juves at this point of time.
I heard they just wanted the expert on how to get reverse swept in playoffs, because that's me, and that's why I'm here, just offer that analysis.
Well, we are happy you're here. We're happy, of course, you are joined by your brother from Down Under as well, Skimmy. How are you feeling, buddy? Are you ready for potentially 10 games tonight?
Yeah, we're ready. We got all the hydration we need. We've got the package. We're ready to go.
Are you? I feel like I can't remember if I said this last stream or not. We need to insure your voice.
Yeah.
You know how like Celine Dion has her voice insured, and like Usain Bolt has his calves insured, and like Spawn has his house insured. Then I feel like we need to protect the gold here on the OPL.
Yeah, I mean, if it all goes pear-shaped, Nick, I know you've got a golden voice as well, mate, so it's your time to shine. You can only be a host. You can also be a play-by-play hype man. So, you're ready and waiting. I've had a coffee. I've got the energy in me. So we're going to see how long it lasts.
That would not work at all, because I was assured in my contract that I only work in 7-minute chunks. Someone who is going to be working for a lot of the night, it is Spawn. You're feeling like we're dressed up tonight.
It's the playoffs. I thought, you know what? I made a mistake. Because, and this happens every so often, chat. Like, last night, I was like, okay, it's playoffs tomorrow. I'll get Jenna to give me a haircut. I'll put a shirt on. I'll put a jumper over the top of it because it's kind of casual. Everyone will be dressed up. Like, you don't even need to say anything. It's playoffs. Like, people will just show up slightly more, like, nicely dressed than what they normally do. And what happened was you went over to Rusty's house and stole Rusty's t-shirt, apparently, that is supposed to be a long sleeve, but only goes up 3/4 away of your arm because you're significantly taller than Rusty. And you just wore one of Rusty's t-shirts on the broadcast. That's what we got stuck with.
That's what's going on. This is a new shirt, and I bought a new shirt for this show, just for this show.
It's very cute, mate. You look great.
Thank you very much.
Your hoodie last night, by the way, on back pocket.
Yeah.
Where did you get that hoodie from?
Industry, I think. It's an industry hoodie. I don't know if we have clothing sponsors and we've just stomped all over them. But yes, it's a snug fit.
Looks very
all
nice.
Right, good. I'm glad. Good talk. I'm glad. I'm glad that one just died in the ass there. Rusty, how are you, buddy?
Yeah, good. A little bit daunting seeing an old version of yourself from that 2016 cast, and you forget how long you've been casting for sometimes, Nick. So it's a bit weird to watch back those historical matches. That's for certain.
What don't you like seeing about that? Go into intense detail.
I don't know, man. That was like, so to be conceited, I guess that was before like hectic gym Rusty came about. That was a very skinny boy. And it's just weird to look back and be like, damn, I was like 10 kgs lighter.
But on the casting front, you actually did a really good job. I re-listened to that game, and Juves and I, we're the two grumpy old men. We're kind of sitting here talking about how League of Legends back then, it was so much more purer. The essence of the game was still there. And I think a little bit of that shoutcasting was like that as well. We used to only talk about the game of League of Legends. It was just nice to have like 37 minutes of actual on-screen casting as opposed to random 37 minutes of shit posting at Twitch chat and reading Reddit live on broadcast and whatever else commentators do nowadays. So, Jake, you know what, mate? I think you did good.
Jake, I feel like that might be a conversation for off-broadcast. with the producer if you're not happy with it.
To be fair, the main person who does shit talk Twitch chat is Spawn, so I feel like he brought that initiative here to the broadcast himself. But there's going to be plenty of time to talk trash about Twitch chat because we are potentially settling in for 10 games tonight. Let's take a look at the games that will be played today because we've got 2 best of 5s coming up. It is the playoffs. It is all happening. It is the pointy end of the season, and this is your bracket as we head towards grand final today. We are going to be seeing Order versus PGG and Chiefs versus Direwolves. And I think we referenced this at the end of last week, but Rusty, if you're going to pick 4 teams or 2 matchups that could go for the full 5, then this feels like those 2 matchups.
Yeah, this is a super interesting day of games, specifically for me, the first one as well, Nick, because Direwolves did seem to have that late form run, and it kind of is just a battle of consistency, which I think is why you would look at this and say, I would never be surprised if it goes to 5 games. And this first best of 5, is a big form check, and it's also a momentum builder for teams like Direwolves if they're successful.
Absolutely. Well, we are about to jump into it. Juice is going to be spending the evening here with us, which we could not be more excited about. And I hope you're settling in as well. I hope you're comfortable. I hope you're ready because this one could go the distance. And saying all that, watch it now not go the distance and just be done in 6 games. And then we just have to vamp for a couple of hours to sort of fill the time. But we don't need to fill the time right now because it's time to jump into game number 1. It is Direwolves versus the Chiefs, and it is coming up right now after the Macca's Champ Select.
Well, I think it's kind of sad that we versed Chiefs so early. I think Chiefs, along with us, are definitely a top 3 team. And I also think Claire is a really top tier mid. So, yeah, it sucks to meet them this early, but we are going to beat them.
Crocs, I know Crocs good, but I think both gaps too big to lose. So yeah, I think it's gonna be boring series.
Well, I think after the weekend we just had, it's pretty clear that we're coming into form for playoffs. Hopefully they can make it a slightly fun series.
Are Chiefs even good? First Chiefs, I think both of our teams are actually pretty good, even though we're low in the standings. I would say, straight up, both our teams are top 3, even though they might surprise people. But I think we have a big edge in terms of ADC, team fighting skill. So
I think in live phase is pretty easy, but in last week with Chiefs, I think my play pretty bad.
I think my transition to support was actually successful because when I was going into it, I wasn't really that confident, but in 10 days I got top 10, and I think that's a good sign heading into playoffs.
So my matchup into Chippies in our first game against the playoffs, I think is going to be very exciting. A lot of people, especially the people I meet in solo queues, say that Tophoon, I, and Chippies are the best carry players in the league. So I'm definitely very excited to see the matchup against Chippies.
I don't really have feelings towards the Direwolves, but my opinions on Vital is I actually think he's pretty good AD carry, probably one of the better AD carries in the league, I would say, mechanically. So it'd be an interesting match, and I think if we actually take down Direwolves, and if I have a really good performance against Vital, I'd feel really confident against every other AD in the league.
And here we go, jumping into our very first quarterfinal here in this year's OPL playoffs. It's going to be the Chiefs taking on the Direwolves. It was a match that we saw last week in Super Week, where the Direwolves were able to get that victory. They come off a 3-0 Super Week performance. They're feeling confident, as you saw from their pre-game video. But you heard some opinions really from the Chiefs also saying, look, we've got carry potential in our lanes. We've got understandings of what we need to go into this one. And I think for me, a big area that I'm going to be very excited about is that bot lane matchup in particular. I know we saw the Caitlyn get let through there for Katsuri. The response then from Vital to pick the Jinx. We're thinking, hang on a minute, is Jinx the pick here? But the numbers speak for themselves, right? He managed to pop off. He did 40% of his team's damage. He was looking crazy. He was frontlining as an AD carry. So we're, once again, I suppose, Spawn, looking forward to a bit of explosive action here.
Yeah, and I cannot stress enough how key it is for Vital and Decoy to have a good laning phase. Because as you already mentioned, Skimmy, Katsuri is a lot of the team fighting insurance policy that the Chiefs build around. It's like everyone does all their things. Croc gets ahead in the early game. Maybe Thien falls behind or gets himself ahead. But when all the dust settles and it gets to the 5v5 team fighting, you can always trust for Katsuri to be the last person to die and do the most damage in the game. Now, he's going up against a very explosive AD carry in Vital. He plays the game a little bit different to Katsuri. However, he is just as electric in certain moments of the game. So I do think that this is going to be a big one. They already get rid of the Jigs. They're going to lock themselves in a first pick Caitlyn. Very 10.16 draft here, Skimmy, and I cannot wait to get into this one.
Certainly is. They're going to remove it, as you highlight. The Lux is also going to be the complement too, to remove what could have been a bit of a strong combination. We've seen the opinions really sway between, do you go for the Lux, do you go for the Morgana? Obviously the Lux offers a fair bit in terms of just global shields, right? In a team fight with the Morgana a little bit more targeted to denying a bit of CC and lockdown, so there's still an option available for them, but the Karma denied as well. We've seen that the Chiefs are one of the biggest teams that like to sway towards it. So we'll see what the Dival's response is. A few strong picks up and available for them. We know that their tended strat is to leave Chippies to the last pick to find himself the most desirable matchup. But they're going to lock in here with Shock going for the Zen. This is interesting because the last 3 times these teams have met, it's always been Shock going either Orianna or Syndra. He's going to start to dip a little bit now into Claire's champion pool.
Yeah, he certainly is. And at the same time, when you have a look at Azir, it matches the range of Caitlyn very well, and also the scaling. So I've always liked the Azir into Caitlyn matchup just because it's one of the few champions that can zone her and outrange her in team fights. However, when you have a look at what the Chiefs have just locked in, that is all the bridge you need in a composition. And the way you generally build League of Legends compositions, Skimmy, is you say, okay, where's our scaling? How are we going to get ourselves towards the late game? And, who's going to be able to take over there? Well, Caitlyn, she has great range. She's a great hyper-scaling AD carry. So then you have to say, but okay, what are we playing around early game? Is it going to be Caitlyn's push? Well, if they ban away Lux and Karma, maybe we can't play around that. Let's get an early game lane bully like a Renekton, a quick tempo jungler like Nidalee, and just be able to play towards that top side of the map. The Chiefs, at the moment, a very well-balanced composition.
They are, and they've also taken a lot of what worked for them last week in that Super Week when they went to do battle with the Direwolves. They've gone for that Nidalee and Renekton top lane again to try and get the ball rolling early. Ornn was the response from Chippies in that situation. He was able to hold on long enough to then obviously scale up, contribute a whole host of items to his team, and ensure that they had that late game durability to work. We've talked about the Lux before. The other obvious option tends to be that Morgana. They've removed that as well, so now they're really putting the pressure onto Draku to say, well, what else can you play? He showcased the Bard last time, but the more conventional champions, when you think of Draku in that support role, tend to be the likes of Nautilus or Set.
Yeah, in saying that, I don't think you really want to play Nautilus into a Caitlyn all that much. I would get rid of maybe Bard here. Potentially, if you really think he's going to over-index into a Enchanter support, you can also get rid of Yuumi. But I don't think Yumi's in a great spot at the moment. So I would be interested to see what the last ban is. Kayle. Do they think that Claire can play Renekton mid?
That's interesting. That must be something that they've figured out from either scrims or just from what they've got prepared themselves. That is interesting, though. Don't tend to see that too often.
Yeah, it certainly is. At the same time, these teams wouldn't scrim to each other, Skimmy. So there's probably not all that much to give away. Maybe a little bit of solo queue action coming out where Claire maybe played a game of Renekton or something like that. But solo queue is always a hard one because you have to watch out for the smoke bombs. Like, every now and again, like a player will just be like, I'm going to play like... you know what? I'm going to play 3
Spam their matches string, just bait them.
Exactly. And why? Because I'm bored and I maybe want to get something out. There's the Bard, so the reason they didn't ban it, Skimmy, is they wanted to take it here. In this situation, Thresh is probably the best answer you can get. I don't know whether Draku is going to necessarily lock it in over Nautilus, as you had already mentioned, or maybe even a Braum. But I do think Thresh is maybe the best matchup they can get down there in the bottom lane.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see how they want to try and fight fire with fire, because obviously Ashe wants to get that shove on, wants to try and match that of the Caitlyn, but won't have that mobility. That's what the Bard is looking to try and patch up, much like you talk about a Thresh with the Lantern to try and disengage away. The option now presents itself here for Dragu, flexing through a whole host of picks that he is definitely not going to pick, but this one he will. That's going to be the Nautilus, his most played this split, the one he finds the most success with as well.
And Skimmy, I'm just having a look through, and I actually don't think that Claire has played Sylas so far this split. So I would assume that that is going to be a Sylas top lane potentially coming through for the Chiefs. And that is indeed going to be in a Renekton mid lane, which could be very, very interesting.
We see a single Sylas game from split 1 in the mid lane there for Claire, but outside of that, nothing too out of the ordinary. It's a tie in the top lane for Tien, 3 games on both Sylas and Renekton, so we'll wait for the dust to settle and see what they decide to lock in as we wait for that to be shuffled through. The final pick here for the Direwolves was that Nocturne, so a lot of ganking potential, the ability, I suppose, to try and keep pace with the Nidalee, but say if you gank, I can gank as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that the big thing about the Nocturne is if you ever run into him and face check him, he will be able to kill you as a squishy jungler, and he also farms at the same speed as a lot of these caster junglers do. So you need to be able to take that. I would expect this is where the draft is going to settle, Skimmy. We actually saw Order do a similar thing into an Ahri last week, I think. That's the only team that's played Renekton mid so far, guys. I'm not just mentioning for fun. And it was the exact same combination here. You can flash Empowered Stun as a 2-second stun into Guaranteed Spear. And I think that that is going to make this Azir's job in the laning phase quite difficult, because as Azir, the way you get advantages is you actually shove. And against a melee Renekton with double dashes plus flash plus a guaranteed stun, it's going to be quite hard to shove into him there, Skimmy. So every single time he uses Q, probably going to be under threat in this laning phase Shock. In saying that, Shock is one of the better control mages, and from memory, I actually think Claire was one of the not so great bruiser players in the mid lane. And when the Chiefs were playing a lot of bruisers mid, they were using Swiper mid and Thien top last year, as opposed to actually leaving Claire on that lineup. So I'll be very interested to see how Claire goes playing Renekton mid.
Well, we can touch on those key areas of the map to look forward to, but as it stands right now, here is our very first playoff match in the OPL going on into 2020. It's the Chiefs on the left-hand side, the Direwolves on the right-hand side. 4th and 5th seed doing battle here today. They played last week. They'll be familiar with one another. But the season aside, playoffs is a completely different beast. I mean, how much can you really deduce from those regular season results? More or less, I suppose, now it's coming into the mentality, your confidence, your levels of preparation to say, this is a clean slate. Let's see what we can do in a best-of-5 series.
Yeah, I mean, you can't deduce anything from regular season because we play best-of-1 triple round robin. And it really does depend, do you get them on a good patch? Do you get them in a situation where, you know, maybe they made an early game mistake? I was reading Parbu's article and I thought it was actually pretty fair. Order were able to pick up some early game kills versus that team, and that Parbu said the early game didn't really count in that best of 5, so he thought you could discount a couple of games being played there. When you read what the Direwolves write about best of 5s, they say that experience matters a lot more in their opinion, and when you have a look at the Direwolves lineup, you have a lot of people with great experience. Decoy has a lot of experience. Chippies has obviously won some OPL titles in there. So I think it just depends like what your team needs to actually click. And when push comes to shove, I would say that Direwolves are one of the best teams in the OPL under pressure, and in my opinion, they are proven to be the best team in the OPL when the series in the game goes for a very long time, Skimmy. They don't seem to break at any stage. They were able to reverse sweep in the first split playoffs, and that to me is kind of invaluable when it comes down to this part of the season.
It certainly is. I mean, you touch a really good point there, the fact that they were able to have the fortitude to survive a best-of-5 series. I say survive because a lot of these games can go to distance, 35 minutes and onwards. That's a lot of League of Legends and high-pressure situations. They hold the record for the highest over the regular split and split 2 at 33.5 minutes. Bit of a conflicting style in that to what the Chiefs want to try and achieve. They want to be aggressive. We always harp on about they have that first item spike. They find that first skirmish. And much like, you know, with a global ultimate to try and find its mark, they're very much the same. When they find that fight, they want to win it strong. And they want to make a statement and try and get into their opponent's head. Now, I want to return to this mid lane because we've seen what a mid Renekton can do before. I think Swiper has to be the Class A example of flashing forward, getting a lead, and really making things happen. I think we look at the Nidalee and see if Dragu can be alleviated from his role in the bot lane. You've got a very strong ability to flash forward, collapse on, and put pressure on Shock so he can't use that Streamer Shuffle to be aggressive.
Yeah, completely agree. And when you have a look at the top side of the map, you would expect the Azir to just play this a little bit more like a farm lane. Flip side of Summoner's Rift Tower, bottom, a lot of action so far. The bottom lane's all rotating over to this blue buff. I think this is a dangerous fight for Direwolves to take. I would much rather be the Chiefs' early game comp right now.
Yeah, Croc's already got himself that double buff, so he wants to try and deny away another buff as well. Keep Miru behind and make sure that he can't hit 6 as quickly as possible for that paranoia to cause havoc on the map. They will decide against it in the end, and they will be pushed back to just taking the bottom scuttle instead. But a lot of that just comes from the fact that Vital was locked underneath his turret, does not want to sacrifice that CS at the expense of a fight that could go 50-50. There's no first blood just yet.
Yeah, and so why did they actually back off that buff if you think they are stronger early game? Well, Croc saw an opportunity where his laners were actually gaining CS off that, and we're going to start losing CS. So he sends them back to lane, and he says, now that I've interrupted the jungle clear of Nocturne, I can take 2 Scuttle Crabs, and I can actually put the entirety of my jungle on CD. I'm going to be level 5 if I want to be, before the first shop even goes down. Then I'll buy jungle item, I'll come straight back onto map, and I'll go do myself a dragon. A little bit of forethought there. Knows that he'd already picked up the win by interrupting the Nocturne's jungle path. He has 4 camps available right now to 1, and he's still even CS. Like, this is just a really nice early game for the Nidalee player to be able to explode onto Summoner's Rift.
And it's going to be interesting to then keep note as to where he decides to use that advantage. If he's going to look to go and try and take down the Azir, given the fact that they've gone for that lane swap, tries to make himself a little bit safer now in that top lane. Not going to be as easy for Dragu to rotate and collapse. So that is going to be an all-now responding. Make him a tanky, durable tank to survive what could be those empowered stuns. And as we say of the man himself, it will be Croc that peeks his head into top lane.
When you have a look at this, they just needed to make this wave hit turret. And you can see they're actually going to teleport for a dive here, Skimmy.
Yeah, that's Renekton coming on through right now. There's the dive. Tien seems to be the focus point, but he's going to try and flash away from those chains. The fear goes on through. Tien gets one final heal off, but he's going to fall on down. That's Miru picking up first blood. It's going to be junglers both on the score sheet there, as Croc responds by taking him down. 1-for-1, teleport's committed.
Yeah, and now Claire actually in some big trouble here as Chippies has rotated over.
Certainly has, but he's got Croc there in support with a blue buff, so those heals will continue to come on through at a very low cooldown. As Shark did not want to chase that any further, given that there would have been a lot of CS lost underneath this turret. So, 5 minutes in, a killer piece. The junglers get the game started.
Yeah, however, good news for the Direwolves is they got first blood. They also got the teleport out of Claire, and they have been able to get themselves an experience advantage. Shock being able to stick around whilst his counterpart dies means that he's going to go up. He's going to hit level 6 a little bit earlier. And Azir top lane against a no-flash opponent with the shuffle and a Nocturne ultimate coming over the top does seem like it could be some free kills here, Skimmy. So very interested to see if Miru actually pulls a Croc and just continues to give some love towards his top laner.
Yeah, it seems to be the focal point when Chippies gives us those interviews, right? Can't wait to verse Croc in that top lane. Knows that the 2v1 is going to take place a fair bit of time, but that's going to really test the experience, the strength of these players to say, well, you're playing mid lane now. One in a off role and one on a champion that he's not necessarily known for. So we'll get to see what kind of impact they can find. Obviously, Claire gets himself an assist for his efforts by committing there with a teleport. But this is Croc continuing to show favour to this side of the map as well. Back-to-back scuttle acquisitions and with the bot lane priority as well. Just gives them all the protection in the world.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, I actually thought that this would be a dragon starter off this recall for Croc. When you go back, get yourself a red smite, as well as an amp tome, as Nidalee is pretty free to just be able to hit the dragon whenever you want. She is very good at being able to duck in and out over the walls, and she does them relatively easily. Obviously, could be waiting for a level 6 spike, which will get off this camp, but I think that's a little bit risky given the fact that Miru's level 6 is maybe a little bit more valuable. The map state has stabilized here, bottom lane completely even. And the solo lanes do seem to be slightly in favour of the Chiefs right now, despite the fact that Shock did have himself a very nice recall. So see whether the Chiefs can continue to try and push the pace of this game, because I agree, Skimmy. I think that if the Chiefs have, you know, a run-in, just crash into the opponent, tie early game, get the team fights that they're looking for, this could be a Chiefs favoured series. However, Direwolves have shown that they can play scale. They said that after the, in the interview with Snowball, they said after Split 1, they actually found the style that they thought suited them, and it was a slower style, as we see the exact combo I was talking about into the top lane.
Certainly is, and that's going to be the ultimate stall on the way here. Tien is going to pick up himself an Emperor's Divide, now buying a little bit of time, waiting for the rotation. That'll be clear on the hunt now, ready to make it a 2v2 if that were to continue. And I think this is an interesting point to highlight, the fact that Tien playing the Silas will have a fair amount of options as to, well, how do I want to respond to this, full 5v5, objective kin test, little skirmish itself, because you've got the likes of a Tempered Fate, an Arrow, an Ornn ult, even a Paranoia to make yourself have so many options at your disposal given the circumstances.
Yeah, I think that when he's level 16 and he has the decreased cooldowns, he's just going to go between Ornn ult and Ash Arrow. They're the two best ultimates that you can nearly grab in the game. Ash Arrow actually has a really great AP ratio on it for Silas, and it you just dash in, hit him with an Ash Arrow, 1.2 second stun. I think when it's point blank range, it's still a very long time. And then you can chain it with the rest of the CC in your kit, stack up your Conqueror. Oh, he's actually gone Fleet, so he hasn't gone Conqueror this game. So, okay, a little bit less damage that's going to come out at the end then, off the back of the combo. But I still think it should be quite potent. You can see Claire doing a really great job of hovering in Fog of War here. This is one of the mid laners' main jobs. You don't necessarily have to commit to every move that you have, but just even sitting in that Fog of War guarantees a turret play, means that they will be able to start up this Rift Herald as well. And I think just, across the board, this is the pace of the game that the Chiefs want to play. Now, credit to the Direwolves, they're still within touching distance, but it's important to note that you have given away the first two major objectives of this game.
You certainly have, but obviously the posturing that you mentioned there with Claire just going to that top side gives comfort to Tien to know that he can go for that plate, knows that he can continue to be aggressive, and that they can continue to dominate a portion of this map. Now, as you say, the Herald was picked up there by Croc. He's going to instantly go to the top lane, summon it, and ensure that that will acquire so much gold in the favour of this Silas, who is now starting to build himself up a little bit of a lead in the gold department, and may look to take down the first turret at this 10-minute mark as well.
It's going to be more than a little bit of gold. He's got himself 5 full plates nearly, and could have potentially stuck around for the turret itself, Skimmy, given the fact that you can see the Nocturne on the bottom side of Summoner's Rift. Would have been a little bit of a tempo sink, but I think he would have been able to grab it. And you can see he's probably 1,100 gold up just off the items that he's been able to purchase, which at this stage of the game is no slouch.
First shot here for Vital, and as a result of that, with the Vamp Scepter and the Berserker Greaves, can afford to play a little bit more aggressively now and not be pushed up against his turrets. Similar situation when the jungler is in the area, you can see Miru hovering around. Making sure that if Croc was sneaking here, that he would be ready to react.
I was wondering which Ashe build we would see Skimmy. So obviously Ashe kind of has 3 main builds. He has Trinity Force with Comet if you're going to play the Poke build, where you go into Essence Reaver, 40% cooldown reduction, it's about lane dominance and shooting arms. Then you have Lethal Tempo, Interpolated Little King, best early game build if you're an Ashe player, and should be able to keep you even or ahead in a lane matchup against Caitlyn, who's not going to build Lifesteal. Third item build is actually where you go Essence Reaver, Runar's Hurricane, Infinity Edge. The most expensive item build out of them all, right? However, it is the best late game team fighting build. And given the pace at which the Direwolves are currently playing, I think that there's a really great case to be made that Vital could probably be greedy in this game. We know that Katsuri isn't the kind of AD carry to punish you in lane. He's much more of the team fight AD carry, a little bit more slow. We know that Croc isn't going to play around bottom lane. He hasn't for the entirety of the OPL season so far. There's another ult going to be burned in the top lane.
Yeah, Mirish is winning, getting range right there. Now going to go for the Tether across the wall. Here comes the arrows. Well, that's going to connect. No, it's not. I spoke too soon. 2 ultimates going out, but Croc sidesteps them both. Only 1 kill's going to be found here.
That arrow looked like it hit him.
You had me. You had me as well.
Apparently it didn't. So turret goes down, but another kill going across, and Miru really putting a camp in on that top lane. He knows that he needs to be able to match Croc early. I love the Nocturne pick for this exact reason. If you know your top lane is going to play a fighter, ult the thought, decoy just face checks, going to be able to get out. If you know it's going to be fighter versus fighter, then Nocturne can very much punish his playstyle. And as the game progresses, can be a menace in the side lane as well as the team fights. He's already 2-1-0. Going to be quite difficult to deal with this full AD jungler assassin as the game progresses.
Certainly is, but what that's going to mean is that Shock will be able to try and catch up in terms of the gold that was acquired by Tien only moments prior by getting all those plates. They obviously took down the turret as well. Let's give Chuck a bit of time to now respond in his own similar fashion. What's worth noting, though, is the shops took place in this bottom side of the map. Both the AD carries got themselves some items, but big difference. You've got Katsuri sitting on the Infinity Edge, whereas there's only a Cutlass at this stage here for Vital. And with that in knowledge, Croc can afford to go for the second Dragon.
And we're going to get ourselves a Fire Dragon as the stall here, Skimmy. So a very important early game stall, as Chippy might be under fire.
Certainly could be. Going to hold on to that flash for the meantime. Can look to just sidestep and dash away if need be and collect all this farm underneath the turret. And I want to return back to the point you mentioned before about this Ashe build, where you say that Croc isn't going to prioritize going to the bottom half of the map, and that we've got all these variations of the Ashe build that you could see, be it, you know, a BF sort of very old school traditional Ashe. But given now that you got the circumstance where Chiefs are dominating these neutral objectives, they've put this game on a sort of situation where we could be looking at a sub 25-minute Soul. Maybe now the Dire Wolves are thinking, well, we can't afford to go full greed. We need to have at least some form of fashion to respond.
Yeah, potentially the case. And you know what? Right now, Vital is probably the strongest carry on the map, along with, Renekton and the Nocturne. But at a certain point, Caitlyn will just do more damage, especially if he goes Infinity Edge into second BF Sword item. And he's not going to. He's actually going to go Azeel item here, which is a little bit strange, because I think Caitlyn's strongest point on this patch is when she gets the 2 BF Sword items and 1 headshot crit or 1 piece of CC into a trap, into a headshot crit, is what determines the team fight, because she's one of those champions that she hits you twice with, Stormrazor, Infinity Edge, and then you're just out of the team fight for the entirety of it. It feels a lot smoother to play her with a Zeal item. Obviously, attack speed always feels great. But I do just think that, there are some small itemization differences here that each 80 carry goes for. But right now, Vital definitely needs to be feared.
Yep, as you highlight, the combination between the Caitlyn and Nidalee to lay down a wall of traps and then have the CC and the bruisers to get into that to force them to stick around and have optimal uptime on that damage would be a scary damage proposition. But Chiefs are going to decide against that. Rapid Fire Cannon might be the option instead here. A little bit extra range to make sure that they have the poke from afar. And they will have the availability not to be too one-dimensional. And Decoy needs to be careful here. He used that magical journey, but the Chiefs swarm him. They find that pick at the 15-minute mark. And not too long away is this next Herald. Shock, however, went to try and form some assistance. He's now being caught behind enemy lines. And is going to try and hit that magical number to find himself that denial. Not going to use that teleport as well. That's fantastic. No, the CC comes out. A stun at the last second of that channel. And they'll find themselves a double kill.
Yeah, really important play there for the Chiefs, because they did expend a teleport to make it all happen. However, they're able to pick up the 2 kills. That is another free objective that's going to go down. It's 4-0 if you count the neutrals on the map. Turrets might be equalized right here. But the Chiefs just running over this early game. The end could be in some trouble.
Here comes Miru. That turret's getting lower. Out goes the ultimate. Cut out the vision. Make sure that teleport can't find full success. He's gone. Tien jumps in. But he's unable to jump out as a cross-map arrow stuns in place to teleport to Claire. He's unable to do much more than just watch his fallen ally.
They're going to kill Tien as well.
They're going to look for it. Croc picks up the Heralds, but the play continues this side of the map. Claire forced to flash away. Chippies follows, takes 1 turret shot, and now looks to juggle the aggro. Here's the headbutt. There's the stun. And there's the turret to fallen down as well.
And just the composure out of the Dire Wolves. They're not looking to overextend themselves into any of these plays. It was a 3v1 turret dive. Teleport came in. They reset aggro completely. They wait for Tien to make the Claire to make the mistake to leave the turret. Why am I keep saying Tien? It's just because he's playing Renekton as the top laner. They wait for Claire to make the mistake, leave the turret, and then they're able to continue the fight and take down the mid laner of the Chiefs also. This is one of those games that it's getting a little bit difficult for the Chiefs in some of these skirmishes. And I do want to just call back to the point that this is an Azir plus an Ornn composition. So you need to be a little bit further ahead than 200 gold at 17 minutes. Now, the fact that they've got 2 dragons, definitely good. The fact that they've banked themselves a Rift Herald, also very good, Skimmy. But at a certain point, Azir plus Ornn is just going to be able to 2v5 the game.
Certainly can do. We know what they can look to achieve. Level 11 onwards, level 13 when those ornaments start to come on through as well. How much of an advantage can the Chiefs find? That's going to be Katsuri caught in the animation there, going for the shot. Now out comes the hook. There's the Call of the Forge God still on the way there by the Silas. Chippies is the target so far. He's rooted, he's stunned, he's in so much trouble. And one headshot will spell disaster, but here comes the turnaround. There's a 2-man stun with the ultimate. A 3-man fling with the Emperor's Divide. There's one shutdown. Now exhausted, now out of the team fight. Tien finds another one. Vital just sitting pretty right now, just tanking on the world and more. There comes the ultimate, flashes the decoy, he soaks up the damage, but Claire finds that Triumph proc and is triumphant in taking down the Nocturne. A sketchy team fight, the first of many, no doubt, in this series. But at the 18-minute mark, that is one that I'm sure the Chiefs are so happy with.
And I cannot believe they won that fight. Vital at this stage, Blade of the King plus Zeal should be so much stronger than Katsuri. A great Emperor's Divide actually scooped everyone back into the team. But it was the solo laners of the Chiefs. It was Claire on the Renekton. It was Thean on the Silas that was just able to frontline for so long, Skimmy. They will get themselves the 3rd Dragon. They get themselves a meaningful gold lead now at about 1,200. And you can just see the components and the composure of this team composition starting to come together.
A big win there for the Chiefs, not only for the fact that they will get to now build a bit of a gold lead in their favor, but continue the trend of, okay, if the gold lead isn't big enough, if we're not looking at a 5k gap at this stage of the game, then hey, look, we've got a soul point to look forward to. It's a very early soul point as well, and an infernal one at just that. So if you're talking about, okay, we're scared of some late game power, we're scared about what these ornaments could represent, then hey, infernal damage, absolutely huge.
Yeah, it certainly could be, and it's going to be a saving grace of the team composition because they use it very well. This is going to be Nidalee, Silas, both great users of Infernal. But then, Caitlyn, probably also the best AD carry because she's a little bit more stop-start than her counterpoints. You know, trap into headshot, reposition, net, ultimate also. So I think that Caitlyn very much going to benefit from the additional AD, but also from the passive that is going to come out of an Infernal Soul. In saying that, they do have to win the next team fight, and big items are starting to be a clue right now for the Direwolves lineup. You can see completed Nash's 2 is going to be there. Zeal item almost done. Chippies is about to be 2 items as well, Skimming. So across the board, Direwolves are starting to come online, but I also just feel like this has been a very good game for the Chiefs so far. The early objectives they've been able to pick up, pretty much uncontested, is starting to build their confidence. You can see it through their play.
Certainly is. Direwolves haven't really put up much of a fight though to steal it away so far, and this is that durability or the flexibility more than anything so far. For the Silas, he can cycle through so many different ultimates. With that Rift Herald being summoned, Decoy will deny it. Etienne has copied the Tempered Fate. That could be decisive in now finding a pick. As the Direwolves now look to try and close out this mid lane gap. It's a 5-man collapse. There it goes. That's one member locked in place. Chippies buffers it and finds that stun. Here comes the Paranoia, locking up the Knights. But out goes the damage, and Decoy falls on down. Now Chippies potentially a second casualty. Tries to do whatever he can. No chance to summon that Call of the Forge Gods. And he'll be a double kill here. And despite the Herald not getting the turrets, the Chiefs can continue to siege.
And it's plays like that that I wish I could still do the War Room, Skimmy, because look at the 2 side lanes as well. They're both pushing into the Direwolves. So if Direwolves had have lived through that engage, they would have been able to collect 2 juicy side lanes and been able to build themselves back into this game. However, if both of them crash without being picked up, and Thean's about to make, Claire's about to make 1 crash, top lane is also going to crash on the next wave, that is just so much gold denied from the Direwolves. And it's not only the fact that the Chiefs just cleanly won a team fight 2-0, it's also the fact that they just lost out on such a huge sideway lane in the bottom lane that Claire allowed to hit that turret, and now he's going to push back into him. You can already see his 20 CS up now. Probably bought him another 15 CS just off this rebound.
As you say there, Spawn, some beautiful macro play from the Chiefs and then forcing their shot call decision making onto their opponents by summoning the Herald mid, saying you had to respond to this. And respond they did, but they lost 2 members. They lost a little bit more. The power spike starting to work wonders here for the Chiefs. They will find some item spikes for themselves. There's the rapid fire cannon for this Caitlyn. Leandry's completed now by Croc, and the Stoneplate as well. They're going to be very beefy going into this next Dragon up in a minute.
Yeah, they're going like the brawler build, right? And kind of need to apologise to Claire. I said I wasn't impressed with his bruiser play last year, and I caught him DN a couple of times, which could be a compliment because he's Renekton. He's pretty damn clean today, Skimmy. been able to consistently be up. He had the shove. He played the map very, very well in the early game. Was able to help Croc out. And I think that has had the run of the side lane against Chippies, who would be very familiar with this matchup. Because, you know, a lot of OPL top laners are starting to pick up the Renekton. Chippies obviously likes the Ornn into it. You mentioned, you know, last week this was the response.
Yep.
But Claire, look at him. He just has the run of the sideline.
He's not fussed about what he's going into. He's got one goal in mind, and that is just to beat this opposition. They lost in the last game of Super Week, but they want to get this best of 5 off to a fantastic start in their favour. A game 1 win here will do wonders for bringing a little bit of tempo, a bit of momentum, and starting to find a bit of a mental edge over your opposition. As for the Direwolves, however, level 13 is there for the Ornn.
Look at all the creeps just dying to the bottom lane turret. You hate to see it. Direwolves
They're
trying
fully
to
committed on this mid ARAM, aren't they?
Yep.
Temper Fate goes out there from Decoy, not going to find anybody right now. Chippy's the focal point, looking to try and buffer that, goes for the Flame Breath. Now out comes the Paranoia, what can Vital find in this side? Pops the Blade of the Ring King, that's Nautilus locked in place so far. That's Renekton jumping on in, but he can't do much, he's forced to dash away. Commits the flash as well. The Dragon is up a soul point to play for here by the Chiefs. Katsuri will continue to try and make these members low, but Chippies will soak up the damage, but they're bleeding, they're low. They're terrified to go into this river.
Yeah, and really decisive play from Claire. He gets himself out, immediately recalls, teleports back in. Now he is full health on the Renekton, and I think he's just won his team the soul. There's no way Direwolves can re-approach and fight this.
Certainly can't. What do we have in terms of the ultimate check? There's only an Emperor's Divide up and available for them. That's not going to be enough, and at the 24-minute mark, you talk about early game advantages. Everything has been given to Chiefs on a silver platter, and they'll take it. Thank you very much. That is an Infernal Soul for them now. A little bit extra juice for them to work with in these team fights. And now the pressure really starts to ramp on for the Direwolves. If you're a Direwolves fan, you're saying, okay, what can the ornaments really provide? How much strength can they get going into this potential Baron fight, or can they stall it out for another 5 minutes and look at an Elder?
And I think it is going to be an Elder fight, right? If you're Direwolves, I think you have enough poke to force a team off the Baron, especially given the fact that Croc is still farming up. But in reality, this game is just going to come down to the 80 carries now. You have a look at how fed all they go.
You said it at the start there, and we'll see what happens as now top lane is the action. Once again an ultimate, cut the vision, prevent the cross-map play. And Tien will not use that ultimate, or not use that teleport, I should say, to assist.
Great call.
Nixon will fall on down. Tien going to look now into the bottom lane and go for an attention on towards Chippies. 1v1 will take place. There's nobody in the area trying to assist this one. The second R2 will not connect, as there goes the Zonias. Now it's going to be a battle of sustain, battle of cooldowns. Tien could respond if he wanted to, because he's stunned on that ultimate, but both will just walk away.
And really great call on why the Paranoia was used there, because it was just the fact that Claire was taking a little bit longer to die. And so they didn't want the teleport to come across. They didn't know where the rest of the members were. As that's a nuke that hit.
Yep, that's a flash forward. There's a journey that they'll follow on through. The passive from Nautilus connects. There's the spear. There's the damage. That's absurd. Nidalee, it's Croc, the MVP jungler. He shows why. And he tears up a storm in that little play.
Just so much decisive play coming out of the Chiefs right now. It's really a joy to watch when a team is just on form and constantly pulling the trigger. The end moves off bottom lane. Drag, who sees an opportunity to go for an aggressive play, nails it in one. And I said there's enough poke damage to stop the Baron. Well, not when your jungler is dead, Gimme. So that is going to be the free Baron picked up. Chippies can do nothing but push out bottom lane. And now it becomes the hoping game. You need to hope that the Chiefs make a mistake, because otherwise the Direwolves are going to be looking to select sides and hopefully have a better game too.
Thank you for them. A best of 5 gives you a few options as to resetting the mental, having your drafts re-evaluated, and the strategy and game plan set back down to default. As it stands here at the 26-minute mark, the Chiefs have not only got themselves an Infernal Soul point, they've got themselves a 7k gold lead, and now a Baron buff looking to push that a little bit further. As you touch on, can the Chiefs make a mistake? How can they look to try and set themselves up as it stood so far? Fantastic bit of macro decision-making that's really cancelled out so much CS that the Direwolves could look to use and bring into this late game. But they've got a 3-minute window, bit of a crossover between this Baron buff expiring and when that will spawn, so really game on for them to how they can respond and hold off.
And I do want to talk about itemization just quickly, Skimmy, even though it is kind of boring, but Infinity Edge is going to be picked up, so there's an ornament there for the Ashe waiting. You can obviously also ornament the Black Cleaver, but Azir is the hard carry of this team. Obviously, he's down in farm at where you would want him to be at this stage of the game. But there's going to be no ornament for Azir, for another full item. This is probably going to be Banshee's Veil picked up for the Azir, which just means that for so long, he is not going to be at the strength that the Dire will need him to be. And obviously, you can never foresee a game going this way. You would have loved to be 300 CS in 27 minutes, where his 80 carry is at. But that's why I say this game is pretty much, to me, all down to how Vital is able to teamfight, because he's going to be the person with the ornament. He's going to get an Infinity Edge ornament as well, the Molten Edge going to come across. So he needs the rest of his team to just be the front line and to somehow be able to get a winning team fight. I don't see it happening, however. The Chiefs just continue to push in, throw spells with this Infernal Soul as well. Should just be able to close this one out. Look at the trap line. How do you even get in?
And that's what you touched on, right? As to why you would have liked to have seen the double BF swords come out very early on. We'll touch on that point in just a second. There's the Baron looking to try and siege on up, but there's a Tempered Fate to delay. Look at that. 3 cannons empowered. They alone will shred through this first inhibitor, and they will take it down very easily.
Trebuchet style right there, just taking down the wall in the mid lane as well. Dan's also got a couple.
Yep, he's going to use that ultimate to try and force out some flashes. He does find one in that of shock. He's here now a little bit scared as a Magical Journey, which actually jumped through what is now going to be a second fallen inhibitor.
And Claire just cleans house. He dashes forward, and everyone says, all right, I'm not dealing with that guy anymore. Just gets the heck out of dodge. And you can see Katsuri now at the double BF sword item point anyway, Skimmy. I do love the point. At this stage of the game, with Rapid Fire Cannon, he just is like unrivaled in his ability to be able to siege down. This has been the grind of the game. The Chiefs got their early game rolling. Dire will look to hit back in the mid game, as we know they can, but they faltered in the team fight. And Chiefs, since then, have been unrelenting in their pressure around Summoner's Rift. I truly believe that the Chiefs are the best team with a gold lead. They are so decisive behind Croc and how they want to close out these games. Let's see if today is the same situation where they just, you know, put you away in one Baron buff.
The Baron buff expires, and the Elder is now spawning in under 30 seconds. That's the crossover we were highlighting. As we've seen from the Chiefs, they've got poke, they've got engage, and they've got commitments that just allowed them to find fights that other teams would maybe be a little bit too shy to walk towards. That gold lead continues to favour them. They found themselves up in an 8k lead at the 30-minute mark. They have full control of that mid priority. They'll be able to assert some dominance in this jungle as well, lay down some vision, potentially form a trap. Got to prevent Direballs now at the 15 level mark, utilising the Molten Edge and a Black Cleaver empowerment. Chiefs are on the hunt.
Here. Very surprised that they did not pull the trigger there. Obviously, do not want to chase into the Direwolf side of the map. However, they did have good control, so they would have had pretty good knowledge. Those 3 items I was speaking about have been picked up for Vital. However, with the Elder Drake already at half health, how do they get in?
Yep, there's Australia's the Magical Journey. Direwolves want to force this one. Tempered Fate will deny it a little bit longer. Out comes the ultimate. Chippy's leaving the line, finds one man knocker, but no follow-up. Not good news for them. Both Claire and Tien on the flank right now, playing goalkeepers, zoning them away. Tien utilises the Tempered Fate himself. Zones out a little bit more. There gets the Dragon closer and closer. Miru tries to jump in there with a Paranoid, trying to get a smite, still will not find it. Elder buff OP, zaps one, zaps the second, Azir falls on down. That hopes and dreams to the Direballs in game number 1, fully reliant here on Vital. A flash away defensively, a spear and a flash again. The Direballs are running for their lives. They are hoping, they are dreaming, but it's not looking good right now. Vital gets one tapped, ADC difference, Katsuri with the range. Like a physical Zoe, one taps you from afar. There is nowhere to run, there is nowhere to hide. The Chiefs will take you down. It was a game that never looked really in doubt. Everything went their way. And to start off this year's playoffs, the Chiefs will go 1-0.
Yeah, and a really great game from the Chiefs Esports Club to be able to open up their Split 2 playoff run here, Skimmy. You kind of mentioned it. It just seemed like the game was always being played to their pace. They were able to go from, you know, neutral objective into gank, into neutral objective into gank. Croc really dictated the pace of the game on the Nidalee. I think you have to get rid of that. You can't give him such a good tempo jungler. I liked the idea behind the composition that the Direwolves had, but honestly, I think the Chiefs just played terrifically, especially Claire in the mid lane. I think he dictated the pace of the early game, and that's not something I would have expected on a Renekton pick. Claire, obviously a great Syndra Orianna player, but the fact that he's now shown he can play Renekton in game 1, that's a big statement for the Chiefs.
A big statement, as you say. A different pick, one that we don't really expect from Claire, but the result speaks for itself. The Chiefs will lead the series here in this best of 5 by getting the first game under wrap in their favour. We're going to jump to a quick break, and we'll see how the action continues going into game number 2.
Today is the NeoSurf Cup, and we're going to be playing against Misfits, so hopefully we can bring home the win.
NeoSurf is simple, safe and secure. You can go to your local shop and get a voucher code and use it online, preferably to buy League of Legends skins.
He's got it! This is deadly! He's got it!
If you're craving the taste of your favourites, head to Macca's for a fast, safe and contactless drive-through experience. For your Macca's run, contact-free, we'll be here.